Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. The condition that we're in general, with some occasional breaks, is the condition of forgetting. We have, in general, forgotten what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of ourself. The process of doing spiritual practice like meditation and mantra and working with a teacher and putting up with a community and all that is to remember. The point is that you are doing things that will help you to remember who you really are. What is really happening here? What is the nature of reality? These are things that you can discover directly, not in a theoretical, intellectual way, but directly through your senses and your mind. When you do spiritual practice over a number of years, you begin to discover what is actually here, what you actually are. And along the way, you gain more clarity. So one way of talking about forgetting is a lack of clarity. You have a lack of clarity about who you are. You have a lack of clarity about how you're showing up. You have some conventional ways of being in the world and behaving and reacting that seem normal to you. You know, someone steals your copies out of the copier at work, and you get angry at them, and then you have to go in and talk with your manager and make a big to-do about it. That seems normal, to some people, to make a big kerfluffle about everything. Of course, someone did something bad to me. I'm going to be angry, of course. So what happens when you start to do practice, and especially if you're doing some practice every day, then you start to gain more clarity. And then the things that seemed normal and natural to you start to seem not normal and natural. They start to appear as what they are. They start to appear as reactivity, as contrived, as conventional, as not really quite as natural and normal as you thought they were. The other thing that happens is that you have anxiety. Even if you're not an anxious person in just the surface way, until you reintegrate with presence, with the natural state, you have anxiety about your existence. There's a question mark there. And we do all kinds of different things to try to assuage, ameliorate, and get rid of that anxiety. And we distract ourselves in all kinds of different ways. I mean, myriad ways to try to distract ourselves from the fundamental anxiety of just feeling separate, being alive and feeling separate. We distract ourselves with designating certain goals as important. That's a big way we distract ourselves. I must achieve this at work. I must have something happen in my relationship. I am going to create something or build something or earn some money or whatever it is, but we choose those things based on our culture and our family and there are a bunch of received ideas. And we feel those things have grave importance, and then we pursue them. And this is a big distraction. When we start to get a feeling for the natural state, when we start to feel that living, flowing presence, which is everywhere, all of a sudden our anxiety that we've been covering up begins to appear to us again. There are different periods during your life as a practitioner when things that you were trying to avoid dealing with will appear because you have basically peeled away some layers of contrivance and convention, and you've denaturalized certain ways that you thought, certain ways of being in the world, and everything sometimes can feel a bit awkward and strange, and you don't know how to be in the world anymore because you're sort of in this middle ground where the old things aren't working and the new things haven't come in yet. So those kind of periods happen regularly. They come and they go. Sometimes you feel more relaxed and more connected, and so they go. Other times you slip back into your karmic patterns, and so the anxiety again submerges. As you continue who you are, how you're showing up, the truth of your karmas and the truth of your existence are going to be revealed at the same time. The karmas, these patterns of body, energy, and mind, are temporary. They're part of impermanence. They come and they go. And even the ones that seem very entrenched, very strong, are still an aspect of impermanence. So in our tradition, we try not to get too upset about the fact that we just notice something about ourselves that we don't like, or we feel something that's uncomfortable, because we have the understanding that we are just doing practice and eventually it's all going to unwind. And we really don't need to do anything else to make them go away. We don't need to attack ourselves or psychoanalyze ourselves or head wring or hair pull or browbeat or any of those things. Although most of you do those things anyway. I have told you not to a zillion times, but anyway, because those are karmic patterns too. We notice something, we feel something, the curtain gets pulled back on some things, and then we go into, plan B to try to distract ourselves, which is browbeating. And, I feel so ashamed, and I feel so depressed, and I feel so upset, and I'm so terrible. I feel so bad about myself, what I just saw about myself. I don't like what I saw about. You're like, okay, back on the distraction train. The problem with spiritual practice is it's too simple. It doesn't sometimes give us enough to distract ourselves from ourselves. The teacher says, all you really need to do is do your practice. And you're like, no, I want more. Give me something to worry about. If you go along in your practice every day, you're going on for years and years, and every day you feel relaxed and calm and peaceful, and it's all wonderful, you are in a state of trance. Something is desperately wrong. I mean, it's okay to feel that way sometimes, but we all have, if we're really kind of at the edge of our practice and really trying to make contact with livingness, we are going to also make contact with some things that disturb us at times. And as you go along, okay, this is something this, but I'm going to say this again because it's ridiculous, but it might help some of you to have a little word you can apply to these moments. When I was in my 20s, I had a really terrible fear of flying. Really, really bad. And I had to fly, so I wanted to do something about it. So I tried a bunch of different things, including Valium and drinking. That never really worked. I was just tired and drunk, but I was still scared. Some doctor I had recommended that I go to this behavioral therapist. I was living in New York. She had this super fancy office somewhere on the Upper West Side, and her apartment looked like something out of New York House, beautiful. And I remember she sat me down in one of those kneeling benches, those kneeling chairs, and she sat in one of those kneeling chairs. And I can't tell you all of the completely wackadoodle things that she said to me, but she had something she called an AFGO, AFGO, an AFGO, and it stands for
another fucking growth opportunity.
Yeah. So if that sort of thing helps you, you can remember that. When you see things or experience things that are uncomfortable as you go along in your practice, understand that it's grace, that this is helpful, that this is something being revealed that was hidden. That means clarity is increasing. If we are not willing to be uncomfortable at times, and at times hugely uncomfortable, and at times scared, and at times uncertain, and at times in great states of doubt, if we are not willing to experience these things, if we continually run back to some comfort zone, you cannot realize if you are not willing to be uncomfortable at times. Well, we're not going into the opposite camp either of some puritanical thing where we think we have to be uncomfortable all the time. Whatever happens is fine. That's better than AFGO. Whatever happens is fine. If you're doing your practice every day and you're being sincere and you're doing your best, whatever happens is perfect. I'm writing a book, as most of you know, called 9 Poisons, 9 Medicines, 9 Fruits. It'll be out in a couple months. And it's about some of the obstacles that we experience in our practice, particularly if we're from the United States. We have our special obstacles and special emphases of obstacles. And then what are the medicines that wisdom, aka reality, gives us to help us deal with those obstacles? And then what are the fruits that we experience in our practice when those obstacles are removed? And certainly comfort seeking, or feeling that everything should be comfortable, or even that we have the right to be comfortable. And that if something the teacher does makes us uncomfortable, then there's something wrong. These are grave obstacles. It's actually the job of the practice, and my job to sometimes deliberately make you feel uncomfortable for a couple of reasons. One is to pry you away from your usual patterns, which have gotten you nowhere. You're here because of your usual patterns. But then when someone points out one of your usual patterns, you sometimes don't like that. So you're in a conflicted position. The people that really take this as what it's meant to be, which is the fast path, the direct realization traditions like Chan Buddhism and Dzogchen and Trika Shaivism are called fast paths because they are more challenging, because they do make your patterns arise more swiftly, because they are a little bit fierce. So this is the zone that you have all entered into, presumably willingly. And just understand that actually the better practitioner you are, meaning the more willing you are to say come what may. That's what all practitioners who practice are good practitioners. But then if we can say come what may, if we can say whatever condition I'm in, I'm going to work with that. I'm not going to try to escape my condition. Come what may. If we can see the grace in everything, then more challenges are going to come faster. Because that's like putting a big light on top of your head and getting a big spiritual address. When you have the attitude, come what may, when you have the attitude, I'm going to wake up no matter what, when you have that kind of sincerity and openness and willingness to deal with whatever comes along, when you're not running away from anything, even your own incapacity, right? Because capacity is also being able to deal with your incapacity and just say, I have incapacity. So when you have that attitude, you get a big spiritual address, and so you get lots of help and lots of trouble. This is kind of a natural law.